32,000 feet above the ground in a cabin that smelled faintly of scotch and leather seats, a black woman sat in silence, her fingers steady on a tablet, while the CEO of the airline beside her slowly unraveled. Hours earlier, no one in that terminal believed she belonged in first class. Now, with a single swipe on her phone, the company's stock was trembling, and so was the man who thought he owned the skies. Her name wasn't Jasmine, not here. It was Alicia Monroe. And this is the story of how one quiet gesture shook an empire. Alicia grew up in Meridian, Mississippi, in a shotgun house that creaked every time the wind blew. Her dad delivered mail 6 days a week. Her mom taught geometry at the local high school, and every spare dollar went to keeping the lights on. They didn't have much, but what they gave her was a sense of certainty. No one could ever tell her she didn't belong. While other kids were out playing ball, Alicia sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by secondhand computers her dad picked up at flea markets. She tore them apart, put them back together, and taught herself code line by line until her eyes blurred. By 13, she had built a firewall system so sharp her school district actually installed it. "Baby," her mom told her, "you may not have much, but your mind is a gold mine. Nobody can take away." Years later, that mind carried her to Georgia State Tech, where she graduated top of her class. But the corporate world didn't see her brilliance first. They saw her skin. At her first internship, she'd walk into meetings with white colleagues, and someone would chirp, "Sweetheart, can you grab us some coffee?" She learned to bring her own cup so nobody would ask. 5 years of that, ideas stolen, credit taken, doors slammed, until she finally slammed one back. With 20 grand scraped from savings, Alicia founded Monroe Cyber Systems out of her tiny apartment. She worked until her fingers cramped coding a system that adapted to threats in real time. When her competitors' clients got hacked, her clients stood untouched. 3 years later, Fortune 500 companies were calling her instead of ignoring her. By the time she hit 35, her net worth soared past 200 million. And yet, she still drove her old Honda Accord, still lived in a modest Atlanta house, still flew economy class just to see what regular customers endured. That choice-flying economy was exactly what led to the showdown. See, 6 months before Alicia had quietly purchased nearly a quarter of Skyreach Airlines, a carrier proud of its shiny glass lounges and exclusive service. She believed in investing across industries, but she also believed in ethics. So when she bought into Skyreach, she wanted to see how they treated everyday passengers. What she didn't expect was to become their next case study in arrogance. That morning at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, Alicia wheeled her little carry-on to the premium check-in. She'd splurged on a first-class ticket, rare for her but necessary, since she was speaking at the biggest cybersecurity conference in San Francisco. The man behind the counter, a stiff blonde fellow with the kind of smile that never touched his eyes, looked her over and said, "Economy line is over there." He didn't glance at her ticket, didn't check her ID, just saw a black woman in a plain black blazer and assumed. Actually, Alicia replied, calm as a still pawn sliding her passport across. "I'm in first class." The man raised his brows like she told him she was Queen of England. He tapped the keyboard lazily. "And how exactly did you book this ticket?" "Through my company, same way most business travelers do." His mouth twitched. "Right. Well, first class includes 2 checked bags. You sure you don't want to take advantage? I prefer to travel light." His tone said, "People like you don't belong here." Minutes later, after grilling her about her membership card and stamping her boarding pass with a bright red random screening, Alicia was sent off like a criminal, watching the line of white passengers breeze through untouched. She felt that old familiar burn creep up her neck. She swallowed it down. Not today, she told herself. Security tore apart her bag, swabbed her laptop twice, patted her down like she was smuggling state secrets. By the time she reached the gate, she'd lost half an hour. And that's where she met Terrence Carter. Another black executive suit sharp enough to cut glass. He lifted his stamped boarding pass with the same red mark. They got you too, huh? They swapped stories, both weary from the same pattern. Random checks that always seemed to hit people who looked like them. Terrence leaned close and said, "I've filed complaints. Nothing changes. Rumor is, some folks are gearing up for a class action." Alicia's chest tightened. She wasn't just a passenger, she was a major investor. If this was true, Skyreach wasn't just morally rotten, it was a financial sinkhole. She texted her right-hand man, Marcus Green. "Get me everything on discrimination complaints. Urgent." But the worst was yet to come. At the first-class lounge, a woman named Sandra held up her manicured hand like Alicia was a stray dog. "General waiting area is back down the hall." "I'm a first-class passenger," Alicia said, voice firm but steady, laying down her boarding pass and platinum card. Sandra's eyes skimmed them with open disgust. "There must be some mistake. This lounge is for premium customers only." Before Alicia could respond, a tall white man in a tailored suit strolled up. She recognized him instantly. Richard Calloway, CEO of Skyreach Airlines. Sandra puffed up, gesturing toward Alicia. "I'm just trying to sort out her documents." Richard glanced once, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing. Nothing. He stood there watching the humiliation unfold and turned back to his phone. That was it. Alicia's patience snapped in the quietest way possible. She called Marcus again. "Plan Echo," she said. Only 2 words. Plan Echo meant war. On board, things didn't improve. At the gate, a red-haired attendant squinted at her boarding pass and insisted she step aside until an older white man, Howard Reynolds, a frequent flyer, spoke up. "Her pass clearly says 1A. Let the lady board." Only then did the attendant smile and wave Alicia through. And of course, when she settled into 1A, who should sit down beside her but Richard Calloway himself? "Quite a coincidence," he muttered, fastening his belt. "Flying to San Francisco for business or pleasure?" "Business," Alicia replied. "I'm delivering the keynote at CyberGuard." He blinked, unimpressed. "Never heard of your company? Small startup." She almost laughed. Instead, she pulled out her tablet, scrolling through spreadsheets of Skyreach's stock performance, making sure he could see. His eyes flicked nervously toward the numbers, then back at her. "You seem to know a lot about this industry," he said cautiously. "I know enough to see patterns." Alicia answered her gaze, never wavering. When turbulence hit and his scotch spilled, 3 attendants rushed to his aid, blotting his lapel like he was royalty. Her water spilled too. Nobody moved. She wiped it herself. Richard grinned sheepishly. "Perks of being CEO, I suppose." Or, Alicia said, her voice soft as a blade sliding free, just another example of who you think deserves service. That's when the plane's monitors lit up. Breaking mystery investor, destabilizing Skyreach stock. Richard's face drained. He fumbled for Wi-Fi, muttering curses. Meanwhile, Alicia received a ping from Marcus, 17 discrimination complaints buried with NDAs. 3 diversity initiatives killed by Richard himself. A commission system that rewarded staff for steering minorities away from premium seats. She turned to him, calm, collected. "You have a problem, Mr. Calloway. And it's sitting right next to you." He sneered, lowering his voice. "You're exaggerating. Maybe you just had a bad day." "Funny," Alicia replied. "My bad days only happen when I look like me." She lifted her phone. I've documented everything since I walked into your terminal, and as an investor, I'd call that material risk. His smile cracked. Who the hell are you? She leaned closer. The person who owns more of your company than you realize. The rest of the flight was silence thick enough to choke on. When they landed, Richard tried one last power play, whispering to flight crew to hold her back for disruptive behavior. 2 uniformed security officers marched aboard. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. Alicia stood slowly. Officers, I've recorded the entire day. Every interaction. If you want me to file this report, I'll do it in the terminal in front of witnesses with my attorney on the line. At the end of the jetway, Marcus was waiting tall and immovable. He shook the officer's hands, introduced himself as general counsel, then dropped the bomb. This is Alicia Monroe, CEO of Monroe Cyber Systems, and a 22% shareholder in your airline. The officers froze. The game had changed. That night, Richard convened an emergency board meeting, thinking he'd frame Alicia as the problem. But when she walked into that sleek San Francisco boardroom, portfolio in hand, the room went dead quiet. I'm here as a shareholder, she said evenly, to address a pattern of discrimination that's not only unethical, but financially reckless. Board members flipped through documents. Passengers from her flight, Howard Reynolds, Captain James Harrison, even Amara Johnson, a young flight attendant, stepped forward to testify. Amara's voice trembled as she admitted, I was told I didn't fit the image for premium service. I have been documenting everything for years. The evidence was undeniable. The vote came. Richard's suspended investigation launched. Some even begged Alicia to step in as interim CEO. She shook her head. This isn't about replacing one man with another. It's about fixing a system. 6 months later, Skyreach was unrecognizable. Blind hiring reviews, mandatory anti-bias training, a new council led by Amara, with power to hold executives accountable. The toxic bonus structure, gone. Passenger satisfaction rebounded, applications from diverse candidates surged, and for the first time, Black travelers stopped whispering about avoiding the airline. And Alicia, she still flew Skyreach, sitting quietly in 1A, watching with her own eyes as the culture shifted. On one flight, she ran into Howard again. Quite a transformation, he said. What we've accomplished, she corrected. Change doesn't happen because of one person. It happens because people refuse to stay silent. Now here's the question for you. When you face discrimination, do you walk away? Or do you stay and fight to change the system from the inside? Drop a comment. Would you have done what Alicia did, or would you have pulled your money and left them to burn? Because sometimes the loudest revolution starts with the quietest gesture. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and share it. Let's hear your stories, your battles, your victories. Maybe together we'll prove what Alicia Monroe already knew: dignity is worth more than any first-class seat.